Hey, this video is on lists to sentences, and it's called lists to sentences. What that means is a list, meaning a list of notes that you took down. For example, notes you may have taken during a lecture, notes you may have taken during a class, or while you watched a movie, or while you read a book. And then you have to take those lists and make them into sentences. And this is something that some people have a difficult time with, but it's not really that complicated to do, and I'm going to show you how to do it. And we call it a grade booster because when you do this, you're going to get better grades, and because you're going to be writing more clearly. And so the point of this is you can take bullet-pointed items, words, or phrases, and phrases, by the way, are groups of words, and convert them to well-written sentences in a few short steps. Now the reason why, okay, sometimes lists are good. Like, for example, if you're going to make a shopping list, that's fine. If you're going to make a list of things you need to do around the house, that's fine. But the problem with a list is it doesn't show you the relationship between things, and it doesn't show you how one thing caused another, and it just doesn't show you a lot, to be honest with you, other than just a series of items. Here's an example of what I mean. Here's a picture of a light bulb, an electrical panel, a switch, a wire stripper tool, and an electrical junction box. There you go. Now, what story do they tell? Just by looking at this list of items or this series of photographs, what story do they tell? They tell no story. They tell no story because just by listing them doesn't tell you why they're there or what the story is behind them. But let's take a look at this story right here. When I turned on the switch, the bulb didn't light up. I checked the electrical panel and the circuit breaker was on, so I checked the wiring in the junction box and found a loose connection. I used the wire stripper tool to fix the bad connection, and now the bulb lights up. So see how what happens is when you have this story and you have more words than just a list, it gives you an understanding of what's going on, why these things are here, and how they're related to each other. All right, so it's something that you need to do if you're going to communicate in writing. And this is how to do it. After you take notes, you just make them into a series of sentences by following these 4 steps. Number 1, group your notes or list items logically, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. Number 2, put them in time order if you need to, and I'll get to that in a second. Make sentences. Number 3, make sentences out of each list item. And 4, use transition words to help everything flow. And let me go back to number 2 here for just a minute. When I say put them in time order if you need to, not all the time is it logical or is it necessary to have things in time order. Now, if you're going to say, let's say, what happened to you over the weekend and how your trip was and so forth, then you really should put things in time order because people like to read, start out reading what happened at the beginning and then go through with what happened next and what happened next, and then the end of the story. Most people like to have the end of the story be the end of the story, okay? But if you're going to, let's say, write a paragraph where you describe, describe your dog or your cat, and you're going to have a series of sentences describing what your dog or cat looks like, then that doesn't really make sense to say I'm going to put it in time order. I'm going to describe my dog's paws after I describe my dog's eyes. I mean, you see what I mean? That doesn't really need to be in time order. So you have to use your brain and figure out, okay, do I have to do step number 2? Does it make sense to put things in time order? And if it does, then by all means do it. Okay, so let's turn the page and go to the next page. The first thing you need to do is to group items logically, which just means putting related items next to each other. So let's say you wrote down notes about your black dog Molly and your yellow parakeet Mike, and here's what you have. So you wrote down Molly and Mike, my pets, and you have stuff all over the place. Some of the stuff is for Molly and some of the stuff is for Mike, and it's kind of jumbled all over the place, which is going to make it difficult to write a paper or a paragraph because you're going to mix up Molly and Mike, and nobody's going to know, people are going to assume that your bird barks or that your dog chirps at you, and so the first thing you need to do is you need to take the notes and separate them like this. Okay, first make a line or divide it however way you want and put stuff about Molly the dog here and put stuff about Mike the bird here. Okay, separate physically things that are logically separate and group things together that are logically related. It makes it so much easier to write a paper when you do this. Okay, it doesn't have to be exactly like this, but it's a good idea to first have notes about one thing and then have notes about another thing in a separate place. Makes it a lot easier to write a paper. Okay, so once you've grouped things logically, now, and this is optional, is to put items in time order. So here's a joke. Classical music, get it? It's funny, right? Classical. Oh, I forgot. What's a teacher's favorite music? The joke was ruined. Why? Because the setup and the punchline weren't in the right order. Okay? Things are in order for a reason. Our mind, our brain likes to read things in order. Like I said earlier, the first things first, last things last. So if it makes sense, put items in time order. And here's an example, okay? Read these notes. Just look at the left-hand side. If they make any sense to you at all, you deserve a prize. Okay, just look at the left-hand side. Went to Mama Leone's, and then her plans got canceled. Whose plans? Mama Leone's? She said she's available. Jenny said she can drive. If you read this, you don't even know what's going on. And the reason why is because they're not in order. They're not in order, okay? And so here on the right-hand side, everything is in the right order. And then when you read them now, they make sense, okay? You got paid. It's date time. Called Teresa's house. Her brother said she's busy. Obviously, her brother is Teresa's brother. So I'm depressed, so I let my brother borrow my car. Then I got a sudden text from Jenny where her plans got canceled. She said she's available. Now I'm pissed off because I don't have a car. Why? Because I loaned it to my brother. Okay? So, but good news, Jenny said she can drive. We went to Mama Leone's, but the date was over because Jenny got a text her mom is sick. Okay, see? So now it's a lot easier to write a paragraph about this because everything is all in time order. So sometimes what you need to do is actually rewrite your notes. For this, to take it from this and from this to this, you sometimes have to actually rewrite your notes. And to take it from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, you sometimes just have to rewrite your notes. And if you don't want to do that, it's a lot easier to rewrite notes than it is to rewrite an entire paper. Okay? So now that it's in, and the important thing is to read what you write. If it's clear what's first, what's next, and what's last, great. If not, rewrite your notes. Okay? It makes it so much easier. And then the next thing is to just create sentences from your list items. And what you do is just add words to your notes to make them into sentences. And a sentence is a series of words with a subject and a predicate. Subject is just who or what the sentence is about, and a predicate is just a fancy word for the rest of the sentence. Okay, so this is covered in a separate brain sheet, which you can read about here and look on the website if you need more information about sentences. All right, here are some sentences. Here's a sentence. LaRue and Michael walked for over 2 hours in the rain. That's a sentence because it has a subject and it has a predicate. Here, you just have a subject. LaRue and Michael for over 2 hours. And then what? LaRue and Michael what? Okay, so there's no predicate. And here's just one more. Dogs and cats is the subject, and both have 4 paws is the predicate. Okay, here you just have 4 paws. All you have is the predicate with no subject. Get this? So you can read the rest of these examples. You have to have sentences, and all you need to do is just add words to make your sentences. Just add either a subject or a predicate to make it into a sentence, and then try to put related items into one longer sentence. So you see this picture right here? A little moose on a tree stump, and there's a little bird on his head, and there's flowers and green stuff and a lattice fence. Okay? And so you just write this. Let's say you write these notes down. Okay? You wrote all these notes down, and they're pretty good notes because let's say in a paper you're going to have to describe this picture. If you're going to describe this picture, this is a good starting point for your notes. Okay? And so here's how to convert them into sentences. First, you group them logically. Okay? And see, now here it doesn't make sense to put them in time order. Okay, it doesn't make sense to put your notes in time order, so just skip it. So you're going to group your notes logically. And you see I put the flowers here, and then you've got the moose, moose, moose all next to each other. And then fence, fence, fence. Okay, so you've grouped the fence here, the moose here, and the flowers here. All right, and then when you're writing, it's a good idea to try to make your sentences longer by combining items if you can. For example, for these two items, you could have written, there are blue flowers, there are red flowers, but try to combine them into something like there are blue and red flowers. It just makes your sentences sound better, and it makes it a higher writing level, a higher grade level, by the way. All right, and then all you do is just add words to each item in your list to make it a sentence. And there isn't one right or wrong way to do it. You just have to use your mind. I mean, white fence, for example. I mean, white fence. You could just say, there is a white fence in the background. Or you could even better, you could say, there is a white lattice fence in the background. Okay? And so just use your brain to combine them into sentences. And here's one way that you might do it. The picture shows blue and red flowers. There is a wooden moose on a tree stump. The moose has a blue bird on his head. There is a white lattice fence, and there are plants by the fence. Okay, so that's a pretty good way to take these notes and make them into a series of sentences. All right, and then at the end, what you do is you add transition words to help your writing flow. Now, transition words are words that help explain how things relate to each other, and there are a lot of them. And there is another document on the website that covers transition words. You can just search for it if you need a list of them. But they just make your writing flow more smoothly. Now, I'm not going to read all this. What you should do is download the document and just read this for yourself. But here we have a story. It's basically the same story, but this has transition words and this does not. Okay, transition words are underlined, like a long time ago, suddenly, next, because, this sort of thing, and it makes it just flow. So just download this yourself, read this, and you'll see how this, try to use transition words because it makes it just flow a lot better, and it shows the relationship between things. Here's one more example of how transition words are helpful. Okay, now here's a series of notes. Called Mike, went to Susan's party, she was sick, now she's better, party was fun, went home early. Okay, there's a series of notes, but it doesn't really tell you what is going on. But just take a look at this. When you write transition words, you should write why things happened, when they happened, and how they happened. And it makes your story a lot more interesting. Like, here you go. Last Saturday, my buddy Mike called me and said he needed a ride to his cousin Susan's party. I told him no problem because Susan is really nice and she has funny friends. He told me Susan had an awful case of the flu, but now she's better. The party was loads of fun, but we had to leave early because I had to be at work at 6 o'clock Sunday morning. Okay? See how this flows a lot better? Sure, you're writing more, but it just makes it a lot more interesting, and you understand now the relationship between she was sick and now she's better. It just gives you more information. She was sick. What does that mean? She was sick with the flu. See, so you add more information to make it flow. And the way to get better at this is to just do it. Okay, and then at the very end, of course, there's an assessment, and you should just follow these instructions and do the best job on getting all these right. And your teacher will fill out this rubric and give you a little bit of feedback about how you did. So hopefully you get 15 out of 15, which means that you're on your way to really doing a great job of taking lists and converting them into great, good, well-flowing, interesting, and logical, and fun-to-read sentences. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope this has been helpful, and I will talk to you again soon in another video.